and I found it.
Welcome back to Prickly Pear, where we have our feature today, Jonathan Aylett, and it is my absolute pleasure, after asking Ashley ages and ages if you can have Jonathan be our feature, to introduce you, Jonathan. Jonathan is a neurodivergent, prize-winning haiku poet who has enjoyed competition success in Japan, the USA, Poland, and Canada, including the prestigious, I should have asked you how to say this before I spoke it, International Haiku Competition, Manichi, I think it is.
Manichi, yeah.
Thank you. Organised by one of Japan's biggest newspapers, his work has been published in many journals, as well as featuring on the Poetry Superhighway website and appearing on public display in Washington, D.C. A charismatic spoken word performer, absolutely. Regular voice in the vibrant Merseyside poetry scene, runner-up in the Wirral Poetry Festival Slam 2022, and I had the pleasure of seeing you at this one, Jonathan, winner of the Cheltenham Poetry Festival Slam 2023. He's been invited to read as a featured poet at Cheltenham and Wirral Poetry Festivals 2024 and has done that, I think. His debut collection, Goldfish, which if you haven't got it, get a copy, is published by Stairwell Books, and I'm hoping we're going to hear a few from there so I can have the pleasure of reading along with my eyes as I listen with my ears. Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, Kate. That was a really lovely introduction, and in your honour, I'm going to wear a poetry hat for for doing this. So I said yesterday on Facebook that I'd written one specially for this. And when I say I've written one specially for this, what I mean is I gave myself the deadline of this to finish this poem. It's about those little microaggressions that you hear from people who aren't necessarily being mean, but just don't really understand the impact on you of what they're saying, because it comes not from a place of prejudice, but from a place of perhaps ignorance, and they just need educating. And the thing about my sort of situation is that I look perfectly fine on the surface, and it's all in my head, everything that's going on. So it's very much a sort of a hidden disorder, I suppose, if you want to call it that. I don't, but the doctors do. And anyway, someone said this to me at work, and I went home and I just like wrote a rant on a piece of paper, and I wanted to complete it by this. And so I left it until yesterday afternoon, because that's what you do when you've got ADHD. Actually surprised I didn't leave it till this morning, to be honest. And it's called Everyone's a Little Bit ADHD. Everyone's a little bit ADHD. No, they're not, Janet. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone occasionally walks into a room and forgets why, or maybe misplaces a biro from time to time. But that's not ADHD. This morning, I was working from home. Thankfully, I have a job where I can do that every now and then. It means I don't have to waste time and precious energy on decisions like what to wear, because I just stay in my trackies all day. Although there are some drawbacks to working from home, like no routine, no canteen for a ready-made lunch, no pot of coffee on the go in the break room. But anyway, I digress. I do that a lot. At about 9:30, I thought I'd have a cup of tea. I went to the kettle, filled it up, put a tea bag in a mug, wandered back to my desk while the water boiled. Half an hour later, I really fancied a cup of tea. I went to the kitchen. I found a cup with a tea bag in it on the counter where I'd left it. The kettle was still warm, so I waited this time, filled the cup with boiling water, went to get milk, opened the fridge, wondered what to make for dinner. as I wandered back to my desk. A little while later, I decided to make a cup of tea. I found the half-made tea, stone cold by now, by the kettle, shrugged, took it to the microwave to heat it back up, removed another cup of tea, also stone cold, which I'd left in there hours ago. The cup I made when I first got up, well, no, the second one actually, but that's another story. Replaced it with this slightly fresher, but also cold one. Hit the button, only takes a minute to reheat. Dump the old tea in the sink, put the dirty mug there with the other dirty mugs, which was somehow in there. I'm sure I'll get around to washing up later. I looked up, saw a magpie through the kitchen window, saluted him, of course, inquired about his lady wife. And the old rhyme started ringing round my head, one for sorrow, two for joy, as I wandered back to my desk. Fast forward, it's 4:45 p.m. My temples are banging from dehydration. I'm suddenly excruciatingly thirsty. I say, fuck the tea, run to the downstairs loo and gulp metallic tasting water straight from the cold tap. That's ADHD, Janet. In fact, it's just a tiny glimpse. But yeah, you forgot where you put your glasses this morning. So everyone's a little bit ADHD, aren't they? Thank you. Right. And I have actually got tea. I think Naima would approve because it's sweet mint tea, which I got into when I went to Marrakesh, and I'm now completely addicted to it. So I'm going to do one from the book now, and it's on a similar theme, actually. It's about microaggressions in the workplace. And this one's recently been commissioned into a short film by a group that sort of tries to raise awareness of neurodiversity in the workplace. And it's called Ode to a Co-worker. I heard you when you said he's on the spectrum. You were covering your mouth to avoid detection, acting cool with your clique around the cooler, drinking all the Kool-Aid, trying to throw a casual bit of shade. And I'm here to let you know that, yeah, okay, I see you. I've got you made. And you're dead right, I am on the spectrum. But all that means is I'm the rainbow to your beige. So don't worry, mate. I'll contain my rage because it's a superpower, not a cage. On the spectrum, I'm a weapon. Rhymes are my guitar and my mind's the plectrum. Let's turn the page. Do you know what it took for me to put myself on this stage? No, of course you don't. You sat at home without a worry, watching Corrie, eating a curry. And I am sure that if I put you on the spot, you would say that you're sorry. But that's not good enough. The damage has been done, not just by you, but by anyone who ever tried to force me through the doors of their preconceptions, who confronted me with clauses, who buried misdirection in the hidden meanings and subtle subtext couched in deception, who attempted to arrest my inevitable progression with so very many teeny, tiny microaggressions. But hey, it's okay. I can see you getting upset. I'm not going to go and talk to Tina in HR. At least not yet. I've got no time for all her empty platitudes and that fake self-serving middle management attitude. I don't need a sympathy vote or to tick the box of a diversity quota. So I'll let you off the hook. But look, just try to see me for who I am And if that is really beyond your comprehension, don't try to make sense of it. Don't label me. Don't respond with condescension or put me in a box or cast aspersions. Just remember this. If you've met one neurodivergent person, then you've met one neurodivergent person. Thanks. Right, I just need to get this one open on my phone. And I'm gonna do a villanelle next. And I know, Ashley, you did a workshop on villanelles a while back. I will say, I'd love to attend everything all of you do, but I have to protect my energy very closely, so I'm not as active as I would really like to be in going to your various events and supporting them, but I am sort of rooting for you on the sidelines. And I know that's relatable to some of the people because I've spoken to you in the group about it. So it's a villanelle. It's also a kind of an extended metaphor for letting life pass you by. And I based it on that sensation that you have. You know, when you're sort of sitting on a train and the one next to you moves away, and then for a split second you think that it's you that's moving, but it actually isn't. It's the other train. And so I've called it Leaves on the Line, which is a bit of a play on words, I suppose. And anyway, here it is. I thought that the train was leaving the station. They made an announcement. Departure was due, but it was the other one, sitting adjacent. I don't want to sound like I'm being impatient, but how come the timetable never runs true? I thought that the train was leaving the station. Perhaps it was simply the way I was facing. I really believed that the carriage had moved, but it was the other one sitting adjacent. So here I remain, overcome with frustration, a needle confined by the walls of its groove. I thought that the train was leaving the station. All of my life, I've been sitting here, waiting, trusting this train was the one she would choose. But it was the other one, sitting adjacent. How could I let myself be so complacent? Why did I think there was nothing to lose? I thought that the train was leaving the station, but it was the other one sitting adjacent. Cheers. Right, we're going to do, and Ash, just tell me if I'm running out of time. I'm going to do another one from the book. And this one, I've had really good feedback about, and it nearly didn't go in the book because I wasn't sure it was good enough, but people seem to really like this. And I wrote it to a prompt for a poetry night that I'm going to, that I go to every now and then in Liverpool. And it's called Ode to Nowhere. I'm just going to have a sip of drink because my mouth's getting dry. So here we go, Ode to Nowhere. It's inspired, I suppose, by Road to Nowhere, the Talking Heads song, to a certain extent. Right, Ode to Nowhere. No destination on this trip. We ride a rolling Mobius strip. The life we seek always in sight, just out of reach. This is our plight, to yearn for things we cannot grasp, to clutch and cling to what won't last, and dream of what might come to pass. The other side, that greener grass, we've glimpsed it from this wave we surf, not knowing that it's astroturf. Yet mesmerized, we struggle on, we fight the tide, we slip, we slide, we long to fly in bluer skies. we never stop to wonder why. So on we rush through light and dark, sleepwalking through our boundless arc, each day a treasure cast aside, lives unmeasured, trapped inside the tape loop of our daily grind, oblivious, preoccupied with paying pipers, keeping time. We chase our tails, we toe the line, and through the window, rushing by, the flowers grow and bloom and die. That's that one. Right, I'm going to do a sonnet next. This is a new one. It's not in the book. I've stuck it up on socials, so some of you might have seen it there. And I'm trying to write a book of sonnets and haiku about sort of themed around birds and things that fly, but each one being a sort of a metaphor for something else. So this one is not as quite an obvious metaphor actually for the attitude of some people towards the migrant community in this country. And it's called quite simply Starling. It's a fairly formally structured sonnet. I write a lot of structured, formal poetry, and I think this is not because I'm an old traditionalist fuddy-duddy who doesn't like free verse. It's because I really like the structure and the symmetry, and I think that makes the poems more beautiful, really. And I also really like the way it becomes like a really difficult crossword to write something to a structured form, which is quite autistic, I think. But anyway, it's called Starling. And here we go. Straight from the pages of the tabloid press, African migrants over here to pinch the seeds set aside for tits and finches, bringing such ruckus and unholy mess. Speckled, iridescent, unruly yobs, yellow knobbed beaks like heritage carrots, strutting around, bullying the sparrows, dunnocks, wrens, and other little brown jobs. Oh, but when these vile abominations gather together as a flock in flight, does nature have any more splendid sight than the sky alive with murmuration? So perhaps we shouldn't judge too harshly. Uninvited guests can make the party. Like I said, it's a sonnet, so it's only a short one. I've actually got a haiku about starlings as well, which is also a metaphor for the way the sort of ADHD brain sometimes works. And it just goes, origami birds, a murmuration of thoughts folding inwards. Anyway, I did actually write a set list for this and I'm sticking to it, so I'm very proud of myself. I'm going to read another one from the book. This is a poem of loss. This was written for my uncle who passed away a couple of years ago, and I performed it the day after I'd been to his funeral, a live event in Liverpool, and I couldn't perform it. I sort of broke down because it was a bit too raw and emotional for me, but I think I can probably perform it now. And it's about birds and bird watching, because I'm like a massive geek for that stuff. Not quite a twitcher, but I do have a really nice set of binoculars. Anyway, it's called Foreshore. It took 3 days once the guests had departed, for the wind to drop. In accordance with your wishes, I carried you down to the foreshore, and I left you there, beneath a seething mercury sky, among the worm casts and razor clams. No grave, no headstone, just mud, weed, wind, and cold, relentless tide. Lately, as winter comes around again, I find myself returning now and then to watch sandpipers skittering among the jagged, jutting ribs of rotten boat carcasses, the low sun glinting on weed-slick stones, green shanks and oyster catchers in stark silhouette, strutting, probing, sending delicate shockwaves across tungsten clouds on a burnished mirror. And finally, I understand. You have no need of a headstone or memorial plaque, because you're here, resting in the mud and reeds, carried back and forth by the endless wind and tide. Here at the foreshore, your atoms incorporated into the feathers and flesh of the birds whose names you taught me. I still get a little bit choked up when I read that one. Right, one more and then I'll be done. And this one, I left it till last. It's also in the book. But I think this will chime with people. In fact, I've had really, really good feedback about this poem, not only from late diagnosed neurodivergent people, which is the perspective I've written it from, but also from LGBTQI plus people, and I'm really happy about that. It makes me think that I might have just happened upon something slightly universal in this poem, perhaps. And it's also a sonnet. This one is formally structured Shakespearean style sonnet. And it's called Chrysalis. I never knew I was a butterfly. I believed in the stories I'd been told, that I was born broken, a human child who never was able to fit the mold, scooped up in a net and pinned to a board by a system designed to reshape me, sat at the back, shouted down or ignored, given chemicals meant to placate me. But truth can never be buried for long. If you're patient, it comes to the surface. I began to believe I could belong, and I'm finally finding my purpose. At last, I see what has always been there. I'm a butterfly. I'll take to the air. Thanks, guys. That's me. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Everybody, come
unmute,
off.
clap,
Off mute. Yeah,
clap,
and just
and waves.
Jonathan can't even speak. Wonderful,
Oh,
wonderful.
mate, that was
Yes.
a knockout set.
Brilliant,
I'm going
brilliant.
to take you off spotlight for everybody, and I will also stop the recording. That was amazing, though. That needs to be on the record.